Beneath the surface is a special place. Beneath the surface is where extraordinary happens. Designations, visiting cards, fancy cars. Now, whatever may lie on the surface, delve a little deeper, and that's where you will find the hunter-gatherer, the predator. That's where you will find lurking the real, way beneath the surface.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of A Done Deal. It is my pleasure and my honor to introduce my guest today, Mr. Raju Venkatraman. So, ladies and gentlemen, is negotiation a critical part of what you do? Do you need to resolve conflict and persuade and influence others at work? If you've answered yes to these questions, you will surely love my discussion with Raju today. Just a quick intro. Raju lives in Singapore and brings nearly 30 years of rich C-suite experience from the corporate world as the CFO, head of strategy, general manager of various business units, head of sales and distribution, marking him out as a versatile and savvy leader. His most recent corporate role was that of the CFO and head of strategy of the Walt Disney Company for Southeast Asia. Presently, as a coach and corporate educator, Raju is powering on senior leaders towards their executive excellence and in fulfilling their potential and aspirations amidst the change and disruption and uncertainty that's going on around us. Raju's cross functional range, his sharp business acumen, his well honed art of people management, and insights into the APAC region make him a sought after leadership and career coach. Welcome to the show, Raju.
Hey, Keshav, thanks for having me here. So, not just thanks for the invitation, but thanks for the introduction as well. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Very good. It's a nice, warm, sunny day in Dubai, and I suppose it's the same in Singapore as well, where you're based.
As is the case, but then this morning we had nice, wonderful rain.
Oh, wow, lovely.
Yeah, but now it's nice, bright and sunny. Yeah.
Very good, very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, many people think of negotiation as a formal process which is conducted only behind closed doors by high-powered executives or politicians or world leaders. Still, others think of it as the same as bargaining in street markets. While both those may very well be subsets of negotiation, Raju, you view negotiation as a common everyday activity or process that most people use to influence others and in the process seek some sort of personal, team, or organizational objectives, even as we take the other party's objectives and their needs into account. The truth is, as we are aware, that everyone must negotiate to survive and thrive. Your career, your finances, your reputation, your love, your life, and your love life, and more at some point, all of these hinge on your ability to negotiate. So that is why negotiation is one of the most important business and life skills you should work on developing. So, Raju, let's get started by having you tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and what you do currently.
Sure. And Keshav, some of this you had covered in the introduction that you had given.
Sure.
So, having traded corporate life for entrepreneurship since 2016 when I left Walt Disney, I'm very much focused on my passion, which is working alongside senior leaders and mid-level corporate leaders, and helping them fulfill their potential, right? And like you said, driving them towards their executive excellence. So I'm doing this as a career coach, as a leadership coach, and I work with leadership teams, helping teams become more positive and productive. And then I conduct workshops, Keshav. Now, my favorite topics are around the art of negotiation, which is what we are discussing today, then about helping them develop this skill of having difficult conversations in a constructive manner.
Right.
Then you talk about organizational savvy or political savvy, right? So that navigating stakeholders and getting things done in the maze of corporate life.
Correct.
And then topics like business acumen, and given my previous role as a CFO, I talk to finance people, helping them think more strategically, right? And be good business partners.
Right, right.
And yeah, that's what I do.
Excellent.
And as far as negotiation goes, Keshav, I had the good fortune of being involved in a variety of settings.
Okay.
As on the buy side, on the sell side, right? Having led the sales and distribution team for Disney Media across Asia Pacific, I've crafted some wonderful sales and distribution deals with digital platforms, with pay TV platforms, with free TV platforms, right?
Okay.
And then as the CFO, head of strategy, have done some M&A deals, have bought media content, have done satellite transponder rental deals, right? And IP. Disney was all about IP. So intellectual property licensing, right?
Yes.
And I was very fortunate, Keshav, that I had the opportunity to be trained not once, but twice by the best in the business. Mark Gordon of Vantage Partners. And now I've moved from being, if I may call myself an ace negotiator, to being a negotiation skills trainer.
Right.
Used to do face-to-face training for both corporate leaders and MBA students, but now, as you know, with COVID-19, it's all virtual training.
Yes. The world's moving in that direction. Could you please tell us a little more about that last point about virtual training and how you manage things? Could you please give us maybe a couple of examples?
Sure. And very timely that you're asking me this. Happened in this month only, September.
Okay.
So second week of September, I was at ESSEC Business School, their Singapore campus.
Okay.
With the global MBA students.
Okay.
Now, because of the pandemic and travel restrictions, we had a few students here in Singapore, but a majority of them stuck in their countries, respective countries. As far away as Canada, France, Belgium, Madagascar, India, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, right? So it's a very interesting experience. Me wearing a face shield, using Zoom, multiple screens. And teaching or lecturing was not so difficult, but audience participation, right? Making sure they're all engaged in different time zones. For someone, it's 2 a.m., 4 a.m. So how do you keep them engaged? But more importantly, negotiation is all about role play, right? Where people get that experiential learning.
Correct.
Doing that virtual breakout rooms, monitoring the chat there, and then guiding them. It's fascinating. So that was one, right?
I'm sure.
So that was about the students. And then on 15th November, I had the opportunity to do a training for mid-level leaders, corporate leaders of an insurance.
Right. Okay.
And this was people and their executives across different countries in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
But then things are never simple, right? That was Zoom. So this was WebEx.
Right.
So different platform, different combination of facilities.
Yes.
Breakouts not so easy. But then it went well. I'm happy to say, with a smile now.
Right.
That things went well, and I received feedback on both.
Okay. Well,
it went well.
Well, to think of it, virtual sessions are completely different to the real setting. It's quite amazing and incredible that you managed to have, I would say, a similar experience, if not the same experience, with a virtual setting. But yes, it's a complete negotiating in front of the other person, a face-to-face setting is always very different. So let's talk a little more about styles then. So you've been there, done that, Raju, in various types of negotiations, various geographies, various settings, various industries, and now you train people in both the art and the science of negotiation. Do you have a particular style of negotiating? Are there various styles, and how would you characterize your negotiating style? Is there one particular style, for example, that gives people more wins than others?
You rightly put it, that negotiation is not just a science, but it's an art.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And different practitioners would obviously be practicing it differently.
Correct.
So definitely there is no one style that works best. There is no one size fit all.
Correct.
Let me just take you through this. I'm sorry for the...
No problem.
So, when you asked me about the different styles of negotiation,
yes,
you have been involved in negotiation. Obviously, we all negotiate to meet a business goal.
Correct.
Right. So, if you see on the y-axis, we have got the degree of assertiveness or the desire to meet the business goal.
Correct.
But unlike bargaining on the streets of Mumbai or Istanbul or wherever, most of our negotiation involves repeat episodes where we are looking at building a long-term relationship, right? So that's why the degree of cooperation on the x-axis. So as negotiators, we need to be skillful in this dance of creating value, right? Enlarging the pie, and then claiming value, claiming your fair share of that pie. We shouldn't be naive that we create value but forget to claim value. We shouldn't be short-sighted that we are only focusing on claiming value and thereby leaving value on the table. Right. So if this is the framework, then we are looking at different approaches to negotiation.
Okay.
So where it is low cooperation and low competition, that is avoiding the lose-lose. Right? Less said about it, the better. People who shy away from negotiation, who avoid negotiation, who dread negotiation, right?
Yes.
And then there are those who compete much more than cooperate. They tend to dominate.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
One-upmanship.
Yes.
That is called the I win, you lose kind of negotiation. Doesn't work too well, right? Except in very limited circumstances.
Correct.
And then there is something which I follow to have bliss at home, which is the lose-win negotiation. I'm not sure about you.
We can have another session on that, Raju.
Of course, especially with your loved ones.
Yes.
I do that even with my kids, right?
Yes.
Placing others' needs above yours. And sometimes you do that even in business negotiations, on the rare occasions.
Correct.
Right? That's the loose win where you accommodate, where you yield. Or you also do this where you know that the other party is very powerful. Let's say I'm a small supplier supplying to the likes of a Walmart. So there, it's okay, fine. Whatever terms they dictate, because I want their business. And once it's known outside that I'm on the qualified suppliers of Walmart, I can supply to others. My credibility improves.
Correct.
So maybe as a tactic, I used loose win, not because just of the situation. Then there is what I call the lazy approach, the 50-50 compromise. you leave a lot of value on the table. Compromise is okay when you have done all the negotiation and just to wrap up, you want to just give away something and close it off. But there again, we need to be careful because research shows 80% of the concessions are given during the last 20% of the time. So we need to be careful about compromise.
Correct.
Right.
Very true. Very true.
And then my favorite approach, which is the win-win, which is the problem solving and collaboration, where you really seek to enlarge the pie, where you are trying to go beyond the positions to uncover the underlying interests, where you can dovetail different interests.
Yes.
In fact, difference in interests is a recipe for good negotiation. That's my belief. Now, having said that, while my favorite approach is a win-win approach, we need to be situationally aware.
Correct.
In some situations, it may not work.
Yes.
Right. And in the same negotiation, like I said, creating value, claiming value, you may have to dance between these situations.
Correct.
So we can all have a favored approach, but we need to be situationally aware and skillful at dancing the dance.
Correct.
Does it make sense?
Yes, completely. Yes. And I suppose at some point you'll have to combine various approaches in parallel as well as series. You could start off, for example, with a lose-win approach.
Sure.
Then sort of work your way
on some
around.
issues you may do that, right?
Yes.
On some issues you may do that.
Yes.
On issues where you don't you think the other party you can create some goodwill, sometimes you may do that.
Correct.
And then you brought a very good point. When you negotiate as a team, you must have heard of tactics like good cop, bad cop. Of course, we shouldn't overuse those tactics.
Of course, yes.
So different people in the team may have different roles.
Yes. And I suppose it's how much you can get to the win-win that matters at the end.
Your basic approach, if it is a win-win approach, that generally gets you better results.
Correct. Every situation is different. I suppose it's a matter of experience.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to lose a few negotiations to gain that experience. So
true. And I've had my fair share. Today, if I'm sort of doling out liberally some knowledge, it is because hey, I've screwed up.
Of course.
I've made mistakes. Crucial mistakes, man. These hairs are great for nothing. Not for nothing.
Yes, experience is the name people give to their mistakes. And speaking about mistakes, what sort of mistakes have you and other people in your team, or for that matter in your network, made? I mean, what are the three? If you were to list down all the mistakes made, what are the three biggest mistakes people make in personal negotiations, or for that matter, in business negotiations?
Sure. Okay. Let me pick the three that I usually
favorites.
Talk about. Favorites that we need to avoid, kind of, right?
Yes, that's right.
First one is not listening enough. Right? We're all dying to talk.
Yes.
Right. We talk over others. We mistakenly think of negotiation as talking, persuading, convincing, arguing.
Correct.
Forgetting that listening is the missing half of communication.
Very true.
In fact, William Ury has said so beautifully, listening is perhaps the biggest concession you can give your counterpart. When you listen, they feel respected. When you listen, you find out a lot more.
Very true.
Come to think of it,
Mhm.
how much do you learn when you speak?
We are essentially repeating what we know.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
all the learning, not almost all the learning,
Correct.
happens
Very
when
true.
we listen. And we listen not just with our ears, we listen with our eyes, right? Watching
Correct.
body language.
Correct.
That's an altogether different subject, but I'm not going into details. We listen with our heart.
Correct.
From the tone of voice, we know if what they are saying and what they are feeling doesn't match.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very
And
true.
as a corollary, I want to add, patience is one of the biggest virtues. Sometimes asking good questions and then shutting up. People undervalue silence. People are uncomfortable with silence. But then what I've learned is when you're silent, after asking good questions, or when somebody gives you an absurd proposal, or what you think, they start negotiating with themselves. Even before you can give a counter, they will give you a revised offer, which is more favorable to you. I'm talking about the less experienced negotiators.
Of course.
I'm guessing that the other side, if they have an experienced negotiator, they have gone to the same school that I went to.
Or they would have a similar experience. Yes, all so true. And I'm sort of reminiscing some of my episodes in my head. That is so true, Raju. That is such a great point. Most people just don't listen with the intent to understand. They simply listen with the intent to respond or reply. And what about the second mistake in the list of mistakes? Do you have a personal favorite there as well as to what to avoid? That is.
Oh yeah, it is a difficult choosing which one was first. On some day I may pick this one as first.
Right.
Not preparing enough.
Okay.
Not preparing enough. And most of the mistakes are committed even before you get to the negotiating table. Right? Like, was it Abe Lincoln or who said if I had 1 hour to prepare, then I would spend 55 minutes sharpening the axe?
Yes, that was Abraham Lincoln, I think.
Right.
That's a very famous story there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 80-20 rule for me for preparation. Preparation is hugely vital. Some of us are lazy. Some of us are overconfident. Whatever be the reason, we think we can wing it.
Right. Okay.
We run from meeting to meeting, collect the file, go for negotiations.
Right.
Only to have dismal results. We leave value on the table.
Very true.
Let me just emphasize a few different aspects of what preparation involves. A lot of people don't appreciate what preparing for a negotiation means. Right? People don't appreciate. There are fundamentally 3 dimensions of every negotiation.
Okay.
People.
Okay.
Problem and process.
Okay.
A lot of people focus on the problem.
Correct.
Almost all of us focus on the problem.
Correct.
Some of us focus on relationship and people as well.
Correct.
Very few of us focus on the process. And a lot of problems happen there. I'm not saying process is the most important. What I'm saying is process is the most neglected. And when we are talking about people, it's not just the counterpart. It's about managing your team.
Correct.
When you're negotiating as a team, what roles do you assign?
Very true.
How do you align? It's about your stakeholders, right?
Correct.
Aligning with your stakeholders.
Correct. So that we can
having that RACI matrix. Who has to be
Yep.
consulted? Who needs to be informed?
Correct.
Who
It's
has a
about
veto?
correct. It's about going there and singing the same song.
Yeah.
That
So
alignment.
and then now some people come back and say, "Hey, Raju, the world is so dynamic. What does preparation do? You can't be static." Of course, I acknowledge that.
Right.
Business conditions are unpredictable, and some of your prep work will not turn out to be relevant. And your preferred plan of action may not work out. But precisely because you prepared, you would have plan B, plan C, plan D. You would have researched the issues enough that you can come up with creative options.
Makes sense.
By failing to plan, you're planning to fail.
Correct.
So just because you're planning, it does not mean rigidly sticking to that plan. It allows you to be dynamic and dance well. Right? And then preparation has a few other dimensions.
Okay.
We need to think about those questions that we would rather avoid, that we don't want to answer. You can't put a tape on the other party's mouth.
Correct. Very true. It's sort of play devil's advocate there.
Yeah. So you need to have devil's advocate on your team, and we need to recognize what are our hot buttons.
Right.
What are our vulnerabilities?
Right.
Now, we may not be able to close off those, but we need to have a meaningful explanation for them. And Keshav, in order to aid this preparation and make sure we take these various factors into account, it is beneficial to use a tool.
Okay.
And there are various tools now, but then the tool that I prefer to use is something called the 7 Elements Preparation Worksheet.
Okay. 7 elements.
Right? So
Okay.
7 elements. So it's about interest, alternatives, options, relationship, commitment, right? Legitimacy. So again, we'll not go into those details, but then it's a well-structured worksheet that you make sure that in the process of filling that out, you use it as preparing thoroughly. You use it as a way of aligning with your stakeholders. You use it as a way of you update it, because preparation doesn't stop. It's not just right at the beginning.
Correct.
When you get new information as the negotiations progress, you update it. You have to go back to the drawing board, research more about the other party, about the issues.
Correct.
So the 7 Elements worksheet serves as a tool for updating stakeholders.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great insight. That's a great takeaway from the session, Raju. I suppose it works at various levels and different settings, different situations.
Correct. For less complex negotiation, obviously you will scale it down.
Right.
And then in more complex negotiation, you will go the whole hog, but you may allocate it to different people to update and stuff like that. Yeah.
Correct.
But then it's good to have these in mind,
yes,
and then scale it up or down based on the need of the situation.
Okay. That's such a great insight, Raju. The 7 elements. I'm going to try this out on my 5-year-old today and see how it goes.
They are the toughest to negotiate with.
They are the toughest, aren't they?
They are the toughest, and you can learn a trick or two.
Oh yes. Oh, they'll come up with their workarounds. My goodness.
Yeah. And the way they know what to ask mom, what to ask dad. How will they get it?
Well, they are prepared then, huh? They are prepared.
No. In fact, a friend of mine was just talking about his 4.5-year-old daughter. How she offers him a plan B. When he says no, she's already ready with her so-called plan B. Okay, Papa, if it's not this, then can you do this? Who taught her?
Well, I suppose we sort of lose our way with processes and systems. but when we start out, we are so
We are endowed.
I suppose geared for negotiation. It's about the mental wiring. Okay, so I suppose this warrants a separate podcast in itself, Raju. One for maybe the next week or two. And
Happy
as far
to.
as far as this one goes, again, thank you ever so much for your time and your insights, Raju. It's been really enlightening. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Raju Venkatraman, partner at Adan Corporate. Do check out his profile on our website, www.adancorporate.com, and get in touch with him at raju.v@adancorporate.com. So Raju and the audience, ladies and gentlemen, looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. And pleasure having you on board, Raju.
Cheers, man. Thank you for this conversation. I enjoyed it.
Have a good day then. Bye-bye.
Yes.